Hans Kuhn. And in the end, after explaining Prophet Muhammad during the persecution to the Arabian Peninsula, they have no historical evidence for this. None whatsoever. And yet this is their claim. So he admits this, Hans Kuhn. And in the end, after explaining that he recognizes that the original Christianity was Judaic, Semitic Christianity, had nothing to do with what later occurs, he says, in spite of all this, I'm not saying we should all become Jewish Christians, because what he means is we have to become Muslim, because that's the only place they have any historical link, is 7th century. He said, I'm not saying that I'm perfectly content with being a Hellenistic Christian. This is what he said. And the Catholics and all these things, right? And also, the Vatican have to give up all the gold that it stole from everybody. And that's problematic for them, right? It's one of the richest corporations in the world. The Catholic Church is one of the richest corporations in the world. It's actually a state, the papal state. They're the first state that recognized Hitler's government. It's a papal state. It's its own state. It's not part of Italy. So this is the state of Christianity that takes place. Now what happens is, and Allahu Alam, the formulation of all this is very complicated. You start reading about it, it gets more and more complicated. But there is a massive amount of evidence and documentation that has been published recently. Unbelievable. Most of this stuff was done in the 19th century. They don't like to admit this, that they've known this stuff for 100 years. They don't like to admit this. The Tübingen School in Germany, they completely discredited the four Gospels as valid sources, as historical documents. They recognize them for what they are, as propaganda tracts. I mean, this is just fact now amongst the scholars, amongst devout Christians. You know, there's two types. There's the fundamentalists who don't barely know how to read in the first place, but those who do know how to read choose not to read. They choose just to, that I believe this, the devil, devil's trying to trick me, the devil's trying to lead me astray, so I'm not going to listen to this. They consider the Muslims like devils. Once you start using logic and things like this and trying to bring rational argument to the discourse, this is inspired by the devil because it sounds good, right? And this is the way they look at it. And then there's the intellectual Christian who's in a crisis, so they become Buddhist Christian. They do Zen meditation and have ecumenical, we're all one, and peace and love, and Muslims, let's talk about it, and it's all one in the end of the day. This is the other. This is the liberal. You have the right wing and the left wing. And this is where they go. They tend to go, the right wing and the left wing. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Take your choice. And this is where they end up, in one of these camps. For the Muslims, the middle way, when we look, all of this information that has come out has only confirmed what people believed on good faith from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 1400 years. I mean, really our iman should be increased in this age, but unfortunately we have become an ummah that doesn't read. We choose to watch videos, and we become an ummah of listening and not reading, right? The first revelation is Iqra. It wasn't Isma'. Isma' means listen. It was not Isma', it was Iqra. And this is something that the Muslim, we've left this type of knowledge. We just listen by word of mouth. We become word of mouth. Things coming around. Did you hear so-and-so? And did you hear this and that? But once you read and investigate at what their own scholars have arrived at, which we should have